California. Mr. Issa for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Deputy Attorney General, if someone comes in to make that complaint or to file that information, they're going to have their identification checked for who they are, right, to get into the building?
I'm not certain if they were to admit it to the building. You actually can walk into most FBI offices, I think, without having to go through security.
But you wouldn't consider it draconian if, while they're filing this complaint or allegation, their driver's license was looked at, would you?
Well, if we're going to conduct an investigation, we need to know who the witnesses are.
Thank you. I just wanted to know that that wasn't draconian. In the case of Mr. Strzok, there was an appearance of impropriety that people are observing, but you'd said, well, there may not have been the reason, but if it wasn't the appearance of impropriety based on his numerous, rather strident tweets, or not tweets, but text, commenting adversely on the president, what was it?
If I said that, Congressman, it was inadvertent. The decision to remove Mr. Strzok off that case was made by Director Mueller based upon the circumstances known to him. It's important to understand, though, that those text messages were uncovered in the course of an Inspector General investigation that's not complete, so we won't be able to make any determination about what, if any, discipline is required.
Well, let me go to the Inspector General now. This is Michael Horowitz, right?
Correct.
Michael Horowitz has repeatedly complained that he cannot, in fact, he does not have the authority to look for impropriety by lawyers as to their conduct as lawyers, because the office of the OPR has that authority. That's still true, isn't it?
It's true, but he does have authority for certain types of misconduct by lawyers. Okay,
so we have a situation in which he can look at some of the misconduct, not others. So one of the pieces of misconduct he cannot look at would be the question of bias or the appearance of bias in their investigations, in how they're conducting it, or decisions. That is uniquely excluded to the Inspector General in your cabinet position versus all other cabinet positions.
I'm not certain about that, and if I may, I'll check and get back to you on that. But it would either,
but he is excluded.
It would either be OPR or the Inspector General. And with regard to conflicts of interest, I believe certain of those are within the jurisdiction of the Inspector General, but I'd have to verify.
Okay, well, you can get back to me on that. These political views that Mr. Shabbat mentioned, and they're pretty clear that these are people who had a strong preference. But notwithstanding that, let's be very candid. Nobody up here is going to claim to be without their political bias. So one of the reasons that when there is a conflict of interest, people recuse themselves, and when there is an appearance of impropriety, they're excused. And one of the reasons that we look to a special prosecutor, and that you appointed a special prosecutor, was to not only get past the politics on this dais, but to get past the appearance of any conflict by the Department of Justice. Is that fair to say?
To minimize any appearance on either side of bias, correct?
Okay, but a special prosecutor under the remaining statute, how it's done, is still a group looking for wrongdoing. That is their charge. They're not looking for right doing, they're looking for wrongdoing. That's fair to say, like any prosecutor, you're not looking for innocence?
The way I would characterize it, Congressman, is that they're looking for the truth, and then they'll make a determination about whether or not it's appropriate to prosecute.
Okay, so my question to you is, if that's the case, if we accept that, my assumption, that they're looking to, if they can, to hang the president or people around him, hear me out for a moment, then there really isn't a problem with having people that are dead set on trying to find anything that will incriminate the administration in a Russian connection, which is somewhat their charge. So I'll posture to you that maybe it's not that bad to have people who really dislike the president and would like to hang him. Having said that, when there's impropriety, such as Mr. Strzok, when there is, in fact, a history at the FBI of withholding information from Congress, when there is the appearance of impropriety by the Department of Justice, and when the Inspector General is limited under the statute, both because he doesn't have full access and because certain portions are out of it. Wouldn't you say that this is a classic example where, in order to investigate the FBI and the Department of Justice, a special prosecutor who is equally looking for the truth, if it exists adversely to the conduct of the FBI and the Department of Justice, is within your charge and responsibility to see that happens?
Well,
the time of the gentleman has expired.
You built a number of assumptions into your question, Congressman, and my simple answer to it would be that if we believe there was a basis for an investigation or a special counsel, I can assure you that we would act.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would say that since we've already had dismissals for wrongdoing, since there's ongoing internal investigations, the elements necessary to ask for a special prosecutor to, in fact, see what was done wrong already exist.
The time of the gentleman has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Cohen, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank you for your service to the country and for accepting the difficult position under the difficult circumstances that you have. Has President Trump ever communicated with you about removing Robert Mueller from his role as special counsel?
Congressman, I am not going to be discussing my communications with the president, but I can tell you that nobody has communicated to me a desire to remove Robert Mueller.
You said you're not going to relate your conversations with President Trump. How many conversations have you had since your appointment with President Trump?
I'm the Deputy Attorney General, Congressman, and it's appropriate for me to talk with the president about law enforcement issues, and I don't believe that's an appropriate issue for discussion.
When you chose Robert Mueller to be the special counsel, what were his characteristics, his history, and the reasons for you to have chosen him for this important position?
I think it would be very difficult, Congressman, for anybody to find somebody better qualified for this job. Director Mueller has, throughout his lifetime, been a dedicated and respected and heroic public servant. He, after college, volunteered to serve as a Marine in Vietnam, where he was wounded in combat. He attended law school and then devoted most of his career to serving as a federal prosecutor. With the exception of brief stints in private practice, he served as United States Attorney in 2 districts in Massachusetts and in Northern California. He served in many other positions in the department after he lost his position as the head of the criminal division when President Clinton was elected in 1992. Mr. Mueller briefly went into private practice, and then he went back at an entry-level position as a homicide prosecutor trying to help with the violent crime problem in the District of Columbia in the early 1990s. He then rose once again through the ranks and ultimately was confirmed, I believe unanimously, as FBI director, protected this nation after 9/11. And then, when his 10-year term expired, he was so well respected that his term was extended, I believe also almost unanimously, for another 2 years. So I believe that based upon his reputation, his service, his patriotism, and his experience with the department and with the FBI, I believe he was an ideal choice for this task.
Thank you, sir. I agree with you. FBI Director Wray agrees with you. He said that the similar thoughts. He said he was a smart lawyer, a dedicated public servant, well respected within the FBI. I think everybody on the other side of the aisle agreed with you when you appointed him, and everybody in this Judiciary Committee and probably everybody in this Congress agreed with his appointment as FBI Director, which was unanimous, his reappointment, which was unanimous by Republican Bush and Democrat Obama. Everybody respects that man in this country. He may be the most respected man in this. Obviously, we knew that would be an exception. But the fact is, they didn't start to dislike him until he started to get issues that affected the president that currently serves this country. And because of that, they've said the FBI was in tatters, that the FBI, the chief law enforcement, top law enforcement folks in this country are questionable. Some of their allies on television said they're like the KGB. They've questioned you, they've questioned the Justice Department, they've questioned some of the most loyal, dedicated, fearless people in our country who serve the rule of law. And I find it repugnant and awful, and I wonder what you think about it when you hear about the FBI, which works under you, being suggested it's in tatters and that there's something wrong with the FBI and that they're somehow like the KGB.
Well, Congressman, as I know you're aware, I've expressed concern with certain aspects of certain things done by the FBI, but in general, throughout my experience working with FBI agents over the decades, I found them to be an exceptional group of public servants, very loyal, faithful, and dedicated. And I believe some of the finest people that I know are agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
I thought about them, sir, when I watched the Army-Navy game. And I thought about them because I have the honor, as everybody up here has, of recommending some folks to be at West Point and at Annapolis. Those are the cream of the crop. And the people at the FBI are in law enforcement. They're the cream of the crop. And Justice Department attorneys are too. It's not easy to get a job in justice, no matter where you went to law school and what you did. You hire the best. You always have. I compliment you on that. I hope and know you will continue to hold the Department of Justice up as a pantheon of outstanding lawyers and jurists and take justice where it should go, as truth demands and justice dictates. I yield back the balance of my time.